So welcome to the Rise of the Super Being podcast. I'm Vanderson Pires, your host, and today my guest is Sam Byers. So Sam he's been work at Weta, he's been doing gardening, and also he's an awesome video maker. All the cool videos you have of Combat Room, the majority was made by Sam. So Sam, welcome to the Rise of the Super Being.
Thanks very much for having me. I like that you put gardener in there because that's awesome. That's how I see myself these days. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love this transition as well because man, you were working at Weta for a long time, and one day you came to me and said, "I'm gonna change things, and that's my project." So do you remember this conversation? We had this conversation.
Oh yeah, for sure. You worked there like almost 10 years or 9.5 years or so. And yeah, I just got to the point where um, I was burning out, but also it's not really anything that I was in middle management. And it's nothing that I've really been passionate about. I was good at it and it paid well. So it's kind of turns into like golden handcuffs, like you're too afraid to um, throw it in and, scared what can happen next and, what's going to happen with your career. And career is a weird word, isn't it? Because like you think of yourself on this trajectory and it's like a set of stairs that you don't want to jump off, but it's not. It's just that's a falsehood, and people can change careers and change life priorities, and I think it's quite good to keep that in mind. But yeah, I did come to you and I said, I like gardening and I like filming, so I'm going to film gardening videos, and that was really a mistake because. I do like those two things, but actually combining two things that you really like is not necessarily a good idea.
But you did a few,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
we did a few, but I just actually found myself watching my videos that I put a lot of energy into. I found them actually quite boring.
Yeah.
Other people said they're okay, and that's great, but like, I'm like, I actually don't want to make this type of video. It doesn't interest me. You know, the product of fusing the two things together is what you get is not actually that interesting to me. So you got to do something that's you're passionate about. So yeah,
And that was the beginning of this lots of changing on your life, and also another information as well we cannot forget. Sam is a BJJ practitioner. That's
yeah,
important information.
yeah, absolutely. Just a beginner, just a white belt, and that has actually had a big impact on my life and rippled into all these decisions. Like having more confidence, but also slowing down and thinking about stuff and stepping out. Because when you go and train, when you're on the mats, you step out of the stream, even if it's only for an hour or 2 hours. You step out of that kind of constant buzz, that rat race, and you have like a little moment of clarity. And sometimes you're driving home and you're all like sore and you're like, oh, he really got me in a nice shoulder lock. But like, you also can think clearly for a few minutes. And the more you do that, and the more you practice that, you can step out further. It's kind of weird. It's like the Matrix, eh?
Yeah.
You're aware that you're in this, you're on this career path, or you're on this kind of 9 to 5 working paradigm that doesn't necessarily have to be your whole reality.
Yeah, and man, you made so many changes physically as well. You've been changed a lot physically since you started BJJ, right?
Yeah, I lost 20 kilos. So
20 kilos.
Yeah,
Man, that's
and
a lot.
a lot of that was a change in diet, but I only changed my diet because of BJJ. I remember like I was about 93 kilos when I started, and I'd kind of let myself go, and a lot of it had been just stress, and you kind of eat more, and you're lazy and whatnot. And I went along to, not long after I started BJJ, I went to a tournament, and there weren't many people in the bigger weight classes, so they'd collapse them so that everyone over, I think it was like 87 kilos, was in the same category. So I was like, okay, there's my first goal. And there were some big boys. There were some big boys there, like 110, 120 kilos. And I was like, I would like to compete one day, but I'm not going to compete. I'm going to compete under 87 kilos. That's my first goal, is I need to get under 87 so I don't have to get smashed by these big boys. And yeah, so that was actually the motivation to get started losing weight. And going to BJJ helped, and but also the dietary stuff. But I did it because I wanted to get better, and it really hurt when I started, because I was out of shape and I was overweight, and it really hurt. I could only train once a week, and then I'd be driving home and I'd be happy. I'd been so destroyed, but I'd be happy because I've got like 6 days of not having to go through this horrible feeling. And then it started to like change, and it's like, well, I'm going to go 2 times a week. And then it's like, damn it, I've got to wait 2 more days to go and train, because that's my window. It started to change, it's like, and then I started to kind of accelerate the weight loss, and I started intermittent fasting, and that's when things really started to click. I know a lot of the guys at the gym do that, and that was a big breakthrough for me. And then, the weight really started to come off. And I found intermittent fasting, for me personally, quite easy because I'm not a big breakfast person anyway. So as long as you're busy, I would like not start eating till 11 or something like that. And that would be like after my morning meeting, so after the daily morning meeting, so I could hang into there because I'm busy. And I found that quite easy. And then I just started getting later and later. But that was a really good way to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
And you will start to want to look after yourself because you want to get better at something that you can see you're making slow and gradual progress. And also having kids is was a big change for me because it's like, I want to be there for them. I want to be healthy. And 92 kilos, I am 6 foot, but I'm quite a slight build. So that's way too much. I should be like in the mid 70s, which is about where I am now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a couple kilos over, but
yeah, man. But you're looking awesome, and the
Yeah,
transformation, it's incredible, remarkable, really cool.
yeah, it's scary to see the
cool.
photos from before. It's scary to see the photos from my wedding, and I'm like, oh my god, my poor wife, like, why did she? But I'm the same person. It's just like it's just a few extra kilos, but it's just a health thing. And now I want to be there for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
We've had our kids a little bit later, so. When they're playing team sports in their teens, and, my daughter said yesterday, she's only 4, that she wants to play hockey like I did because I was telling her about it. I was like, okay, well, I need to be able to go out there and practice with her and, push the ball around and stuff like that. So that's in 10 years or something. I'm just about to turn 40, so I'll be 50. So I need to be running around and healthy at 50.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't on track for that before. But, I credit BJJ with giving me the impetus to... make those changes. And I don't think, some people say that BJJ got them to lose weight, or BJJ made them lose weight. And I don't think that's necessarily true because it's mainly in the kitchen. You're not going to like roll 7 days a week and start to lose weight like crazy. You have to, it has to be a change in diet. But often people, and myself definitely, you need a reason to do that. You need to kick up the butt. And BJJ was the kick up the butt, and that was fundamental.
Mm-hmm. I mean, have you done any sport before BJJ?
Yeah, absolutely. I was like big into sport in high school. I did hockey. I played hockey at at a reasonable level in the top team, and I played cricket and stuff. That was more just for fun, but high school was all like about hockey, and we went on lots of tournaments, and I really enjoyed that. But as soon as I finished, I didn't do any team sports after I finished high school, which I think is quite common for people, and it's a real shame, I know a lot of people get into something that the office is doing, like, social netball or something like that. That's really cool. It's accessible because your office mates are doing it, and they're the people you spend most of your working day with. But, a lot of my mates played hockey and still... and still have a passion to play it, but we're all scattered around the world now. And so how do you play? I don't know. Like, we tried to start a team, and it's just, it's hard to do like a team sport like that. So I did running, and I went to the gym, but I have no passion really for going to the gym without a really strong reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've started to lift weights now, but again, it's only so I can get stronger at BJJ. It's like, I know I find myself like in these positions where I'm getting squished or something like that, and I really need to just make myself a little bit of space, only just an inch. And I know if I was a little bit stronger, then so that's the reason, you know.
Uh-huh.
It's not because I enjoy lifting or because you know I don't really, to be honest. And it's the same with running, you know. Whereas I kind of like running a little bit more, but it's more of a time factor, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Because to go for a good run, it's gonna take you half an hour, and that's a big chunk of time when you got kids. And I just had my window of exercise, and I just devoted all to BJJ. And
Yeah.
when my son's sleeping, I lift a few weights, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully I won't get squished as bad.
Yeah. I think that's one of the reasons as well. No, I'm doing all those changes there so we can have everything in one place, because I know the time it's limited. So when you guys are there, I just want to, you guys get the most of you can of the experience of jiu-jitsu and doing some strength training as well.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I know there's some people like who really want to push themselves to the absolute limit, and sometimes 2 hours of BJJ is not enough. Like I know that Jack, he goes like,
Yeah.
does he go to the gym before and then he comes to BJJ for 2 hours?
Yeah.
Yes, he needs to extend that session. Maybe that's too much, but like, I like that idea. If you could come and do an hour of BJJ, and then you only need to do like 15 minutes of lifting
Yeah,
to top yourself up
for sure.
and
Yeah.
get an extra burn in those areas,
Mm-hmm.
break down those muscles that need to be strengthened. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
Mm.
So Sam, yeah, and then I'm excited to have you here as well, because now we are giving face to someone has behind of the cameras doing all the cool
Mm.
videos for us for a long time. Yeah, so now people is gonna be able to, connect those two things together, some bias with the videos we are doing. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the videos. They're all awesome, super super cool.
It's my pleasure, and it's a big difference between doing the gardening videos and the BJJ videos, because you can end up with the end product that I enjoy watching and I really like, and that's important. That if you've got like um something, a hobby or so that you enjoy doing it, eh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for me, it's not a job. Just like gardening. Gardening for me is not a chore. Digging holes, to put in fence posts is not a chore. I physically enjoy it. For some other people, they would find that to be work, but I find that as like meditation or something like that.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can relate to that as well.
Mm.
So Sam, you guys have such an interesting story as well. So 1 year ago, you and your wife, with a 3 years old and a newborn,
Mm.
decide to go on this journey and said, okay, we're gonna pause everything now, we're gonna get a bus and we're gonna travel around New Zealand. So first of all, how did you start this conversation? Who came up with this idea? How was this first conversation between you guys?
Okay, well, we'd talked about it before, and I think that heaps of people talk about this. Wouldn't it be cool to take a year off and drive around this awesome country that we have? And, we all talk about those kinds of dreams, and they might be different. Everyone has something, but you don't end up doing them because you're just like stuck in the lane. But I'd quit work and I tried making these kind of gardening videos, and I wasn't enjoying that. And I said, I'm going to put the video camera down. I'm just going to do some gardening. But I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And like we'd found out pretty much as soon as I quit work, we'd found out that my wife was pregnant, which was great. It was planned. And we're like, so now the clock's ticking. My wife is going to stop working. And as with our first baby, she wanted, and this was awesome, to take a full year off at home when the baby was young. So I was like, well, I've got to get a job. So I went and did a few interviews, and the problem is now that the thing that I'm qualified for is that I've done for the last 10 years is something that I don't really enjoy. So we started to think outside the square, and what I saw, she's going to take the maternity leave. Why don't I take a year off as well? And the first problem with that is that we need to pay the mortgage. So it all kind of clicked into place. We can rent our house out. Now we don't need to pay the mortgage. The rent covered the mortgage. And we can, cruise around adventure. So then it just became like, what are we going to do on an adventure, and where are we going to get? And so we started looking at, motorhomes and stuff. And maybe we can do this dream of a year. And my wife was incredibly supportive. But initially, she was reluctant for the whole year. Maybe do 9 months or something like that. Because a year is a long time. But we decided to give it a crack for a year. And we looked around at your motorhomes and stuff, and we ended up getting basically the biggest thing you possibly could. That needed like an HT license to drive. It's an 11-meter long bus.
Wow, 11 meters.
Yeah, it's 2.55 meters wide, which is the widest thing you can have on the road without having to have a pilot vehicle in front of you. Yeah, and actually, like, diving into the deep end and getting over some of my anxieties and doing BJJ gave me the courage to try something like driving a 12-ton bus.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm just going to approach this like I have my BJJ journey and just say, well, I can do this and let's give it a go. And that's how it worked out. And I went on a 2-day course to get my HT license, and that culminated in having to drive a truck around where was it, like Porirua, all over the place and down the motorway. And I've never driven a truck before. It was pretty terrifying. And the first they drive you around for 10 minutes or 20 minutes until you get the hang of it, and you're changing gears at the right rev range and all that kind of stuff. And they said, okay, now we're going to do the test, literally the driver's test. So you've been driving a truck for 20 minutes and now you're going to do the driver's test, and they have to do the proper test. So yeah.
How was this test? What do you need to do?
Oh, just like when you do a driver's test with your car, you have to do all kinds of stuff. You have to do reverse parking, but when you're driving a truck, there's different things you have to do. Like when you're reversing, you have to be fully in gear. You can't be riding the clutch. You can't never really ride the clutch in a truck or a bus. They'll fail you for that. It's really bad. You need to be in gear, and you need to like put it in gear, and you're going back at a certain speed because you're in gear. You can slow it down with the brakes, but like, you're going. And you have to reverse and like turn in, like, so, the stuff like that, and driving on the motorway, and because you're a heavy vehicle, you have to look ahead when you come to a roundabout, because you don't want to stop in a truck if you can help it, because then you got to go all the way down to the gears. We don't have to go down through the gears, but you have to start off in first, and you have to go all the way back up and get your momentum, and it takes quite a while. So you want to be cruising into a roundabout in third gear, and maybe chop down to second, but you want to see, like, is this person going to be turning? Do I need to stop? And you like looking a few cars down, and it's really a totally different type of driving style. And then you have to do that having only driven for 20 minutes. But yeah, the guy was a really good teacher, and I managed to pass, and that was cool. But then I'd driven an hour test and 20 minutes teaching beforehand, and now I'm let go and I've got a license, and we had bought the bus and it's stored by then and mastered in at my mate's place. And then I better take a trip to the bus and drive it, but like, I've got no one to show me how to drive a bus, and I'm just there by myself. And the first thing I need to do is it's got no petrol. It's like about to run out. That's how it was delivered. The guy was like, "Oh, sorry, see you later." So I had to go to a truck stop, and that's the whole experience. But I had to find a truck stop, and I had to drive to one and pull in, and yeah. I took like a wrong turn, and I ended up in some kind of suburbia in Masterton, and I knew I had to turn around. And I thought, well, the road's quite wide here. I should be able to do a kind of a little bit of a 3-point turn. But if you think the bus is 11 meters long, the road is not 11 meters wide. No roads are 11 meters wide. It's a really long bus. So you can't obviously do a U-E. You can't even really do a 3-point turn on a road. You need to like come up to a T intersection. You need to reverse down into a T intersection to turn around.
What a mission.
So there were a few, that's what I did, but there were a few cars that they had to like shimmy out of the way, and like and I only made that kind of mistake once. Yeah, but it was crazy. And then I got to a truck stop, my heart's beating, and then I realized that you need a special card for the truck stop. You need to have like a special fuel card.
Why is that?
Well, because they're diesel truck stops, and they're not like for your casual motorist. Yeah, they only operate a lot of them on fuel cards. So I thought there was one down the road at BP, and I did a quick Google, and it said they can take FPOS. So I swung around, FPOS, fuel, boom, we're away. But that was quite terrifying. And then then we thought, oh, we'll take it out for a Christmas trip, and I had to drive down a country road, and my wife was driving behind me, and I keep like, I was quite, when you drive a car, you consider it to people on the other side of the road, and you don't cross the middle line, and you give them space, and I was automatically driving like that. But you're in a maximum width wide body bus. Sorry, you need to go over the line.
Uh,
And other people need to react, and people are fine with that. They're used to coming up against a truck, and I have to pull over. But I was driving way too considerately and way too like I was driving a car. And a couple of times I dipped the wheel into the grass, and that's not a good idea. So I had to learn to be more assertive and sit. This is my lane. I'm in the road, and you're looking in the mirrors, and you're taking up the entire lane most of the time. And in a skinny road, you're taking up more than the lane a lot of the time. So it's crazy.
wow. So man, this whole thing had everything to go wrong, right?
Yes and no. I didn't think that.
Uh-huh.
And I went on that first drive, and it was really exhilarating and fun. And I kind of decided that I'm going to use this trick that I'd learned before. And I just told myself, I really enjoy driving the bus.
I love that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's super cool.
And you only have to tell yourself that 4 or 5 times. Let's say lie to yourself 4 or 5 times.
Uh-huh.
And then it actually starts to become true.
Yeah, such a good, powerful technique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't lie too far. But driving a bus is fun. Like, you've got all these anxieties, and some people I know have bought a motorhome that's huge, and then they've hated it. But you can't focus on your anxieties about turning around or crashing or doing a 3-point turn or parking and all this kind of stuff. You got to focus on this is fun, man.
Yeah.
I'm driving this huge bus. It's massive.
That's
What's not
awesome.
to
I
like?
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And eventually it becomes true. And then it's like driving day, and you're like, woo, let's go. Crank the music on and put the driving hat on. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. So how was the first? So when did you guys? Okay, we're gonna, the house is already rented for someone, and now we're gonna go. And what was the first stop?
Well, we did like a couple of few test stops, and we'd left the bus sitting for 6 months or so, and like buses don't really like to sit. And we had to do a couple of repairs, like the clutch had gone, and we had to do a few repairs, and we stayed at our mate's place for a couple of weeks, just where it had been parked up. And we went on a couple of test trips, and that was good. And we got everything like 100% how we wanted it. We got new batteries for the house batteries that ran everything. We got everything all sorted, and we did a bit of a shakedown. And we first headed out. We went to, where did we go? I think our first stop was Pongaroa, which is like in the middle of nowhere in the Tararua area, and it's like a farming district, and you can park up at the rugby club. And so you park up there, and you can look out your window, and the farmers turn up in all their utes, and they do rugby practice. It was awesome. And then they go and get like hella drunk and drive home, like weaving all the way home or whatever, probably. But that was the first stop, and that was really cool. And that was probably the craziest slope that we ever parked on, and we didn't really generally make that mistake again. And we parked in a spot that was kind of under some trees, and we weren't getting enough solar, and we learnt that lesson as well. So, but everywhere we went, we started to learn lessons, and we went from Pongaroa, which was awesome. We really loved it. The country pub there is amazing. They have the awesomest feeds, and the people are super friendly. It's like a tiny little community that's is like quarter the size it used to be. Had a mass exodus of people moving to the city, but it's still, they've managed to keep it together, and because they've got an awesome community spirit, they've all got together and planted trees around the place and beautified the school, and everything is really spick and span, and everyone waves to everyone on the street, and they haven't let it deteriorate. They've really kept it awesome. Not all places are like that, and yeah, that was really cool. And we just went to the pub and had an awesome meal and said, where should we go next? And there's a beach called Akitio. I think is the right pronunciation in Maori. I say I think because the neighbours call it Akatia. No, not the neighbours, the locals. You know, they're like, oh, you're going to Akatia? Good on you, mate. And we ended up, I thought, oh, we'll take a bit of a shortcut, and ended up on a crazy gravel road. And that was the first time taking on a gravel road, and you take up 100% of the road, and it's all kind of windies, and it was so enjoyable. It was so much fun. And, you know, you come across a farmer. I can remember coming across one farmer, and he saw me, and he's like, okay, what the hell's going on? So he had to pull into the ditch. So he's in the ditch, 4 wheels in the ditch. It's a wide ditch. And I drive past and wave, and he's cracking up, pissing himself, laughing, just like, you know, like waving at me. And I'm like, oh, okay, route planning is... route planning is important. You gotta. Yeah. I found a way to check if there's going to be gravel roads, and we ended up traveling heaps of gravel roads. But you gotta be careful. But that was my first experience. In the end, we didn't let any roads stop us. If people said, "Oh, I don't think you should go down there. It's definitely not somewhere to go with the bus," we went. We just went there. And people would be like, "Oh." They'd see you at the campground. They're like, you brought that thing in here? And we're like, yeah. You know, what's the worst that's going to happen? You might have to reverse a kilometre up the road. Well, we've got a reversing camera, so no worries.
So already, I can't stop think about what you said about the mindset. Man, that's such a powerful message. I love what you said about repeat to yourself and trying to change because you're gonna experience all those things, and especially doing something you haven't done before. And you're a very handy person, but even that, lots of annoying things you had to learn on the go, right?
Yeah, really hard. I learned that. I was lucky to learn that lesson. And as I get older, I feel like I learn like one lesson every decade. So I've got 4 lessons so far. But I learned a lesson when I was in high school. As I went up, and they wanted, fifth formers or whatever, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds. They wanted someone to give a speech to these kids that were, 12-year-olds, and they were just about to, next year, they were going to come and be third formers, the bottom of the barrel, the turds, It's a hard thing to be. And they wanted people to give them a speech. So I went and gave a speech about my first day as the third former, and how I fell off my bike at the gates to the... because I didn't know which way to go. I was coming on my bike, and I was like, do I go left, do I go right? And I couldn't quite decide, and I went to put my foot down. It was a bike that I'd borrowed off my mum's mate, and it was an adult's bike, and I couldn't reach the ground, so I fell over. Anyways, and people were standing around, they laughed at me, and it was character building, let's say. But I told them that speech, and it went down really well. And afterwards I thought, I'm actually pretty good at public speaking. And then from then on, I told myself that I was really good at public speaking. And later on, I did some analysis and realized, actually, I'm not that good. But because I need to, to be a good public speaker, you need to plan out your speech, and you need to not waffle on. I was just good at jabbering on, which I am now, But because I told myself that I was good at it, it was something that I never had any fear of. And I have had many circumstances where I've been able to do it, and I haven't shied away from it. And I've actually started to become better, and now become, I think, actually a good public speaker. Mm-hmm. So I lied to myself in the beginning, and eventually it came to fruition. And I think it's super powerful. And most people do it the opposite way, right? They say, oh, I suck at this. This is really hard. And that's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you will suck at it. If you think you're going to suck at it, you can will that into being, So that I learned that lesson. If you tell yourself you're really good at something, and maybe it's a little bit of a lie, you can't do too much of a lie, but if it's a little bit of a lie, you can actually manifest it, if it's within your capabilities. And most things are within your capabilities, right? Mm-hmm. You can.
That's so awesome. Yeah, that's super cool. What a powerful message. So Sam, now curiosities.
Yeah.
About this whole experience, because you have, your son was How
3
old?
months.
3 months.
That's not ideal.
So how was this experience in living in such a small space for human beings in this adventure?
Yeah.
How did you guys entertain yourselves? Did you have I don't know, did you have internet? What did you guys had there to
Yeah.
for entertainment?
Well, we had internet, and we had Wireless Nation. It works on the rural broadband system, and you can have pretty much like I think 20 megabits a second in most places in New Zealand, which is crazy. It's awesome. It was quite expensive, and we
I
had
hate
like a
to
little,
ask that, kind of, did you have internet?
yeah.
Oh, I mean, if
Well,
it,
lots of people don't drive around in motorhomes. They just use their phone because I think it was like $120 a month, so it was quite expensive. But there was enough data that we could watch Netflix every night. In winter, when you're effectively camping, and the kids are all sleeping, and you can't go outside. Yeah, you watch Netflix. The adults watch Netflix in bed, and that was awesome. So, if we knew we were going to somewhere that didn't have cell phone reception, because the wireless broadband works on 4G, then we would download a few programs, because Netflix you can download stuff. That's awesome. So we'd make sure that we had enough episodes downloaded of our latest show or whatever. But yeah, otherwise we just sat up chatting and stuff. But like going out on such a mission with a 3-month-old was difficult. It's even just practically difficult because we had like a bassinet, on a little stand, and we're like, great, this fits right by the bed. That's perfect. But he's quite a big unit, and he was growing so fast that literally after 1 month, he's already pushing out of this sling.
Already taking too much space.
His legs already fit the unit. So we're like, oh man, we're 1 month in. We're about to go around the East Cape. We need to sort the situation out first. So we ordered we found like a little cot that could fit into the gap, like a mini cot, and got it delivered to our mates in Napier, and we fit it in there, and then we're away. But there's lots of practical things like that. Well, just like you have to put the kids to bed, and we had like a room at the back with a queen size bed. It was really nice, but we have the baby in there as well. So like if he's in bed asleep there, you can't really, you got to creep in there. You can't really make a lot of noise near him. And our daughter's sleeping in one of the bunks, like in the middle of the bus. So in winter, there's not a lot of places you can go to make a lot of noise. But, our daughter, she was a really bad sleeper up until the day she moved into the bus. She's 4 now. She was 3 then. And from day one, she just slept like a log in the bus, like amazing. I don't know if it's that we're all in the same room effectively, and she just felt confident or comfortable or whatever. But she just slept. And so, we could invite people over from the other campsite, and we could turn on music and have a few drinks inside the bus in winter, and she would just sleep through it. And, but yeah, with 2 kids, especially young, there are practical concerns. And the baby has a nap during the middle of the day and stuff, or 2. Newborns have 2 naps usually, or ours did. And so you got to work around your travel times, and you got to, he can sleep in the car, but you got to, it's a lot of, it would be totally different without kids. But it was awesome to share the experience with our 3-year-old, now 4. She absolutely loved it. She massively changed in confidence. She was a completely new person. She had a few months of kindy before we left, 3 months, and she was quite shy and reserved at kindy, and she used to, they used to ring up, oh, she's crying, she wants you to come pick her up, and we'll do that. But after the bus trip, she'd had so many adventures and met so many people, she'd grown so massively in confidence that they didn't even recognize her when she went back to kindy.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was so cool, and we'd actually have to put the handbrake on her to stop her just running out and introducing herself to strangers. And so she has to ask permission, and she'd always be like, oh, Dad, can I, oh, Mum, can I go over and speak to those people? You'd go like, who the hell are those people? Yep, sure, but stay where I can see you. And she'd just go over to, there's no kids involved. It's just like an elderly couple or something like that, There's because a lot of older retired couples who are doing the motorhome circuit, if you like. And she'd just go over and say, hi. I'm Juno, I'm 3. And they'd be like, whoa, you know, and a lot of people would take a little while to warm up to her. And then all of a sudden she's got mates. You know, most of her mates were like in their 70s, but they'd bring her over treats. Yeah, and
That's so awesome.
we just had the rule, you're not allowed to go in anyone's motorhome or caravan without talking to us first. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Because she just became, you know, she just changed so much. It was crazy.
Mm.
So it was really, really good for her, the adventure. And it was really transformational for us as well, incredibly transformational. For myself personally, for my wife, but also for our relationship, you know. We like butted heads a few times in the beginning. And I remember being in Napier and we were like 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, and we just kind of like said to each other, you know, this is either gonna make us or break us. You know, after we've had a bit of an argument or whatever, let's decide that it's gonna be make us. And we made a pact, and it absolutely brought us so much closer and really made us, you know, because you're living in a confined space. It's like what I say, it's 11 meters long, 2.5 meters wide. So that's, I can't do maths, but 22 square meters or something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, plus a half, 27 meters, something like that. You know, it's a small space, and a lot of that is taken up by furniture, and there's just a little bit of a strip of, you know, gangway down the middle. And if you want to get from one side of the bus to the other, you have to shimmy and squeeze past the other person, you know. There's no getting away from the fact that you're in a small space, and if it's raining and you can't go outside, yeah, you're jammed together. So anything that you have, any kinks that you have in your relationship, they're going to be exposed, and you're going to have to deal with them or just implode. And we made a conscious decision to deal with them, and we just ironed, you know, the majority of that out. And of course, things are not, you know, relationships are always going to be about compromise, and you have ups and downs and stuff, but nothing's perfect now. Don't want to pretend that we're the model couple or anything like that, because that doesn't exist, you know. That's not a thing that happens. But it really brought us closer, and it was awesome.
That's amazing, man. That's super cool. And going a little bit against as well, you know, on the other side, because you know everyone thinks about the dream is to have, you know, things as big as possible. You know, it's the big car, the big house, the big this, the big that. You know, and you guys just went complete to the opposite. And yeah, how was the first biggest lesson for you, Sam?
The first biggest lesson.
Yeah, from this whole experience, because that was an entire year.
Yeah.
Right?
What was the biggest lesson? I guess it is just, it's time. Time is your most valuable resource. And you don't get it back, and you don't get back, you know, the time that your kids are a baby, and, you know, like, it's just gone. And they actually, you know, we saw that our daughter changed so much in a year and grew so much in confidence. So you know that your kids have this massive ability to transform. But if you're not there to help them, and, you know, you miss these opportunities to have an opportunity to have a transformational effect on them. You still, of course, can. And like, there's the reality is that in lots of households, and ours was included, that both parents have to work, you know. It's not, we were lucky to have the luxury that we could rent our house out. It would cover the mortgage, and don't tell the bank, but we could buy a motorhome on the bank's money. We didn't tell them that. And we could afford to had enough savings, but, you know, not everyone's in that position. And we are extremely conscious that we were very blessed to be able to make the time, because you can buy time, but you can't get it back. You know, you can buy time by not working and being poor, and that's kind of the decision that we made, and it certainly set us back financially, you know, in terms of the mortgage, and, you know, we're starting to recover now and stuff, but we just made that kind of conscious decision that we're going to be a bit broke for a year, and just and take the time, and that's definitely a big lesson for us, and that's a big part of the reason I haven't jumped back into the workforce and decided to be the stay-at-home dad, you know, is that, like, I still want to be involved in the kids, and I also want to be able to spend time on myself as well. Um, I've a year on the bus with lots of time for self-reflection. I've figured out a lot of kinks in myself. I've identified them, that they're there, and I've slowly started to work on them. And I know there's lots more that I have to do. So but you can't have that when you're like rushing from work to home and you're doing dinner and you're putting the kids down, and then you're exhausted and you just want to, you've got 1 hour left and you just want to watch Netflix and then go to bed, and then you just rinse and repeat the next day. It's really, really hard to have that time for self-reflection and also to really invest. I shouldn't, I don't want to make people feel bad who don't have this opportunity, or they choose to, because parents need to go to work to provide a roof over their kids' heads, but we just kind of figured out that yes, you do need to go to work, but you don't need to go to work that much. Like my wife she's able to work like reduced hours now, and so that she can spend more time with the kids. And if she worked the maximum amount of hours that she could, we would be a lot better off. We could afford a few more of those luxuries, and maybe I'd have 2 pairs of shoes, but we just have changed a bit in our perspective. And we've certainly realized that a lot of the stuff, the material possessions that we have, are completely unnecessary. And so we've started to sell that stuff off and try and minimalize in the house and stuff. But the biggest one by far was just time. I mean, and I don't feel that you need to not waste time, because I think wasting time is actually really important as well.
Yeah.
Just sitting and just thinking. Like some people would say that's a waste of time. You should be out there being productive. But I don't think you need to be productive to spend your time wisely. Because for some people, meditation or going out and drinking with your mates, that's a waste of time. But it's actually, it's not, it's like actually time very well spent in human contact if you're going out with your mates, or if you're meditating, releasing some of that anxiety, and that's just going to only improve your relationships and connections with other people. And it's those two things which we figured out actually, now that I mention, is time, but it's also personal connections. Those are the two most important things, and you don't really realize that until you have a chance to step out. People can intellectualize it and go, time's the one thing you can't buy, and they think about that, but you have to kind of experience it. It's like BJJ. Like when you're a new white belt, people tell you things, and you can intellectualize it and go, okay, I need to, when I pass, I need, pass someone's guard, I need to like use pressure. But until you actually understand it and you're ready to receive that information and you've got the other pieces of the puzzle there, you can intellectualize it, but you can't actually put it into practice. Mm-hmm. I've had that with BJJ. Has been really helpful in that regard, where I realize that sometimes I'm just not ready for certain messages. I'm not there yet. But if you give yourself time to do nothing, to cruise around and be like a beach bum for a year, traveling around New Zealand, you actually have the ability to put some of the pieces of the puzzle into place, so that you can go, I remember someone told me something about this, and now it actually makes sense. Because oftentimes you've got all the pieces of information that you need, it's all there already, but you're just not ready to put the pieces together. Mm-hmm. And for that, I think you need time. And headspace. Headspace is it, eh? Figure out who you are and what's your priorities, and yeah.
Man, that's very powerful. That's super cool. What a cool message. Yeah, and have those pauses. It's super important to reset everything. And yeah, I can relate to that a lot. Even the other day, someone was telling me, Anthony was telling me, I had 2 months break, and now I just feel, my BJJ, it's way better. I said, yeah, because you just gave space to be able, it's kind of to be able to digest things better. And I think kind of intermittent fasting, it's pretty much what it does for the stomach. So we give a little time, to the body to process better things. And Yeah,
Give yourself a break. I
yeah.
mean, because we know that like sleeping's really important, right? It's the best thing you can do as far as performance enhancement is like to just get a good night's
So
sleep.
true. Yeah.
And it's because you're giving your body a break, and you need to give your mind a break sometimes as well. That's why I think like, people who spend like a couple of hours a day gaming or something like that that they're passionate about, I see that actually as like a good thing. I wish I had the time myself, but they're giving themselves a break, and they're not wasting time. I feel like they're a lot of the games these days, they're making human connections and they're problem solving, and they're just giving themselves a little bit of breathing space. So I don't see, watching TV is a bit different because it's passive, and I try to limit myself
Yeah, yeah.
because that does feel a little bit closer towards wasting time. But I just have worked out that I don't need to beat myself up about that wasting time. Like sometimes you try and fill the day with everything. Don't you? Like you're like, okay, I've got half an hour. What am I going to do now? But maybe you should just sit outside on the step and have a cup of tea. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's man, I'm with you. Especially because now you even feel bad, Normally when you introduce when you see someone, hey, how's it going? Oh, I've been super busy. I'm super busy. I'm super busy. Everyone say the same thing. But are you being productive or just busy doing nothing? Because you can, has those two things are different. You can be
Yeah.
productive doing nothing, but you can be super busy and not doing anything productive. So that's
Yeah.
that's a funny thing. Sam, so how about the human connections? How open did you feel people around New Zealand? Did you feel any difference from area to area, from south to north? Or how was this experience with human connections?
That's a really good question, and that's something I have thought about a lot. I mean, often people say, Southern hospitality, and then that has started to become the South Island people were the friendliest, most hospitable. But we didn't find that to be the case. We found everyone to be moderately friendly across New Zealand. And I don't think that Kiwis are like super friendly. I think they're just like open. Because you wouldn't actually want people to be super friendly. Like, sometimes you meet some people from, I don't even want to name certain areas, but they're overly friendly and they're, like in your face kind of friendly. And the Kiwis are not like that, but I think a lot of the times they're just a little bit more open than other people. So they're open to starting a conversation, but they might not necessarily start one off. But certainly in cities, people are a lot more busy and they're less open to forming a new connection. But we did find, when you're in a country place, people are, you go to the pub and you can chat to every single person. People plonk themselves down at your table and say, "Where are you from?" And you start having an amazing chat and you learn about the local history and stuff. We did find at the campgrounds that a lot of the old retired folks were a lot less friendly and open to connections than we thought. They're kind of, I don't know if this is a part of aging, but seem to be quite cynical about other people, and a lot of times you see like a camper van pull into the campground, and you see the little wind up the little satellite dish, and they start watching TV and they don't go out, and like they're not even thinking about going out and meeting other people and making connections. And this is just a generalization. So I was actually quite surprised by that in the campground setting, that people were not, especially in places where there was an older group of people, they were less open to making new connections. And there were certainly major exceptions. People would come over and start chatting to you, and the kids are a really good icebreaker, especially when Juno's running over and saying hello to them. But if we ever saw like a younger family, we both just like gravitated towards each other. But I think that generally people are quite in their own zone, eh? They kind of got their head down, and like like if you go on a bus, everyone's on their phone or they've got their headphones on. They're keeping their eyes down. They're in their own kind of space and they're thinking, but they don't look up. And certainly, you see a different version of that everywhere that you go. Probably more so in cities where they've got their own problems to worry about, and they're less open to making human connections. And when you drive around for a year and you haven't got anything to do, you think about these kinds of things. And I'd not really thought about it before. I'm the kind of like obnoxious person that kind of like walks past someone in the street and says hello, and they're like, oh, what? And try and force some kind of interaction. I always like to do that. I've always been that way. My dad told me to always look people in the eye when you're talking to them. And I'm always trying to get eye contact with someone when I'm walking by and just, say hello. And I think in Wellington, people are pretty good. And certainly in New Zealand, I mean, like when you're walking around all these, because we went to all the touristy places, it almost became a game where you see a backpacker coming, you can tell that they're not from New Zealand. See if you can get a hello out of them. Me and my wife would compete to see, and like you'd say like howdy to someone, and they'd be just shocked and almost disgusted. Like why is this person about to jump on me and like rob me or something? Like they're so confused, and that's why people say Kiwis are so friendly, because they're open to that connection. But I just see that as actually normal. I think that's probably 1,000 years ago I know that we were a lot more tribal, but we probably were more like that, open to human connections. I'd love to read an expert on that to see if there's any validity in that. But yeah, it was interesting. And for the record, my wife was always the one who got a lot more hellos from those backpackers. She would like be tactful though. She would like position. She would walk behind me so that like they were just over the shock of me saying hello, and then it's like, it's a young woman saying hello. They're less intimidated, and they might get like a oh, hi.
Yeah.
But for me, like when I say hello, there's just a look of shock on their face, and like Joe has this story where she was like walking through the campground, and there was a mother and daughter walking by. They were American, and Juno and my daughter and my wife were walking along. So two mothers and daughters walking past each other, and my wife just said, "Hey, how's it going?" And the woman looked absolutely horrified. And as they passed, the daughter said to her mother, "Mummy, why did that woman say hello to us?"
Really?
Yeah. And the mother replied, "I don't know." She was confused. It was amazing. Like, I'm not sure what that interaction was. Because it's just such a shock. Like, for some people from different cultures, like, oh, I don't know you. Yeah, but it's a shame. But then we ended up having random conversations with people in the most random of places. You just end up just yarning because your ship's passing in the night, so you can actually be quite, someone you see today, you can get into quite deep conversations and stuff, and you can tell them personal things, and you can talk about your ups and downs and all that kind of stuff, because ship's passing in the night, you're not going to see them again, so you end up having like crazy conversations with people over a few beers around the campfire or whatever,
That's so interesting. Sam, how long did you feel took for you to start getting used to this lifestyle and kind of leave behind a little bit of the, I'm not gonna say the trauma of working places and all of that, kind of the normal life. I don't even know which word to use that, but that that program of doing, making things and all of that. So how long was the period for you to start getting more into being more open for the experience as well? Or that happens right away?
No, it's a very good question, and the word I would use would be stress, and
Stress, yes.
yeah, I think
stress.
so. And
Yes,
you don't
you're right.
realize, you really, really have no idea how stressed you are until you step out, and like after 2 weeks, we're like, oh my god, I'm so much less stressed. We're de-stressed. This is amazing. But after 4 weeks, you're like, hold on, 2 weeks ago, I was still incredibly stressed, and now I realize I'm de-stressed, and it keeps going. You keep like realizing you haven't de-stressed at all. You've just taken a layer off, and we keep taking layers off until like 6 months it took, and we realized, okay, because there's always going to be residual stress, right? There's always things to worry about, like, oh, we're running out of food, how's our budget and stuff and whatever. There's always stress. But we kept taking stress off for 6 months and in big chunks, like serious major changes. And then after 6 months, it felt like we've reached a plateau. So I would never have thought that. I had thought, and people have told me before, like, if you go on holiday to the beach, you have to stay longer than 2 weeks because it takes you 2 weeks just to de-stress, and then you can enjoy your holiday. That's I've been told that before. And you can take heaps of stress off, and you probably have a way better holiday after 2 weeks of de-stressing. But that's only the beginning. You don't realize what kind of levels of anxiety and pressure that you've put yourself under. And we did heap extra stress on ourselves because we had to renovate the house and get it all ready to go and move out and then move into the bus. So the last month before we got onto the bus was incredibly stressful, one of the most stressful times in our lives. So we did put a few extra layers on there. But it was amazing to look back. And, as soon as we knew we were a couple of weeks off getting home, we felt layers come back on. And layers have come back for sure. You feel it. Just part of city living, and my wife is back at work now, and we've got a weekly routine, and, that puts layers back on. And especially if you have time commitments, like you have to be here at this time, there at that time, those things for me personally, like if I have to be somewhere at 5 o'clock, you basically might as well take away 20% of my brain and dedicate it towards the anxiety of being somewhere at 5 o'clock. It's bad.
So true.
You've just taken a massive chunk. If I have to be 2 places, maybe I've just taken 40% of my ability to be a decent human away from me. Like that's just me personally, because I get anxious about being on time. I always like to be early, and but not too early, that because there's a different level of anxiety. For me that all disappeared, because when you're in the bus, you don't have to be anywhere. You stay your place a few days, and we had a dock campsite pass, so we could stay in a dock campsite for up to 21 days and not pay, because we'd paid like $300 up front. So you just like, well, shall we say another day? You're talking in terms of days. You're not talking in terms of minutes and hours like you used to. You're like, well, how much food have we got? Yeah, we've got enough. We can scramble something together. Have we got enough water? Yeah, we're good. We just ration it, and you stay another day. And okay, we've got to drive to the next place. We'll leave sometime between 10 and 4. But it took me a long time actually to even get over that level of anxiety. I'd say, okay, we need to be on the road by 10. And it took me a long time, and probably 11 months to let go of that and go, it doesn't matter, like as long as we're not arriving in the dark, because that'd be annoying to be setting up camp in the dark. But even if you arrive in the dark, who cares? Because I'm even like putting a time pressure on myself to leave before 10, I'm putting a massive weight of anxiety, and half of my brain thoughts are around, come on kids, we got to get going, and why are you taking those toys out now? We're in pack-up mode. And you realize those in everyday lives that those anxieties and that baggage that you put on yourself. For me, it's time pressure stuff personally.
The illusion of time, it's one of the big illusions for human beings, the illusion of time.
Yeah, that's interesting. The illusion of time. I mean, Einstein has a great little book on time. And, if you're having an amazing time goes quickly. And if you're having a grueling time, it goes really slowly. But, we didn't have anywhere to be at any time, a set time, but it really that anxiety was still there with me, and it took a long time to get rid of it. And that's something that I'm really trying hard to bring back into my normal life now. Now that we're back and we're back into the normal groove, I want to not put that kind of pressure on myself. Okay, if I got to pick June up at 2:30 and I don't want to be rushing, just go at 2 o'clock and, have a little bit of a walk around the park with the baby, and or go into kindy and just chill out on the couch and listen in, but don't be in a rush. I will put myself under pressure. It's almost like a self-sabotage. I leave it up to the last minute, and then I'm rushing, and It's interesting, but I'm way more aware of that now. I haven't got any of real answers to figure it out, but I've got an awareness that it's an issue, and I'm trying to kind of figure it out. The worst anxiety I can have in the absolute planet, and maybe this is where it all stems from, is being late to going to the airport.
Uh,
Yeah, like when we
my
were,
wife is the
is
same.
she?
Yeah, she's
Oh man,
super paranoid for about that. Yeah, it's massive
yeah,
for her. Yeah.
I'm super paranoid, and I think it was turned into a semi-traumatic experience. The first time we went overseas with Dad and with my brothers and sister, a minivan was coming to pick us up from the taxi company to drop us at the airport, and they were late, and this was the big trip for us, and I got so anxious that we were going to miss it, and we didn't, and we got there, and like, um, but for now I literally have dreams where I'm trying to get to the airport and I'm running late, and
Wow.
my wife
Uh,
is very supportive and very understanding, because we get to the airport like 3 hours early. And I'm like, I just need to be at the airport. I can have a beer at the bar,
yeah, yeah,
and then I
yeah.
want to go see the gate.
Yeah.
Once I see the gate, I'm happy. But it's like
That's so
it's a real
interesting.
problem. And now that I've got kids, I have to be super aware to not project not
Mm,
let them pick up on those anxieties.
yeah.
So I'm like sweating bullets, but I'm like keeping a straight face, while they're faffing around and like
uh,
repacking their bag or whatever. I'm like,
Awesome. I'm completely opposite. I'm so relaxed. I think that's my problem. And with my wife is the worst combination because I'm too relaxed and she's the other side of the spectrum. Yeah, so we
uh,
constantly have that. That's so interesting. Yeah, and this is what one of another questions I would like to ask. What from this whole experience from you and for your wife, what do you guys want to keep cultivating on this routine? So one thing is this notion of time.
mm.
What else?
Human connection, like,
Human connection.
because like I know I've got some really good mates, and I don't spend enough and invest enough time, and that is where you should literally. It would be a good idea to carve out a
I
chunk
love
of
that.
every day to touch base with my mates, and like a lot of my life decisions I've made with the support of them. They've always been there. I've lucky mates from when I was at school, but sometimes it can be like weeks and you're not touching base. That is something that really you need to, or I want to spend more time investing on. And on the opposite side of it, there's people that you hang out with, and they don't actually add any value to your life.
Hmm.
Sometimes they take value away.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and I'd really like to spend less time with those people, and
Hmm.
because time is your most valuable resource. And I mean, there's a great quote, and I can't remember what it is, so that's not helpful. But if you spend time with someone and you feel like you've had like a pint of plasma removed afterwards, don't spend time with that person. If it's a chore and you feel worse after spending time with someone, because sometimes you fall into friendships, don't you? And you just, well, they're my mate, but if they are like draining um, life force from you, you need to like limit the amount of time that you spend with them. So I have both cases where I'm like, I'm not going to invest into certain people because they don't add any value to my life, and I'm wasting time. But I need to, maybe you've got like a drinking buddy and you always go drinking with them, but they just spend the whole time, bitching about their wife or whatever, and it's not productive time, and you really have just completely wasted your entire evening. You're better off like getting on a video call with your best mate who happens to live somewhere else and spending some time with him and cheersing him virtually across the screen, or whatever, and foster those connections. And that's something that I'm uh, need to spend a lot more time on. Even like I've got a good friend of mine, Maya. He has always taken the time to send. He sends little gifts and stuff, and sometimes not for your birthday, of course, but other times where he'll write you like a letter, and that's something that I find very admirable, because that he's taken time out of his day to think about you during that time that he's writing that letter, and so it's a real connection. Um, and that's something that I want to copy from him, and it's I'm very lucky to have friends like that where been able to learn that lesson, but I've got to like put it in practice now, and I'm getting better and better and better at it. Um, But I mean, isn't it amazing how it takes us? I mean, we're a similar age, like 40 years to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, that's amazing.
I think especially guys are a lot slower at figuring this stuff out.
Yes, yeah. That's super cool. So Sam, now how about how about the the process of this making this dream coming true? Can you call that a dream? Was that a dream?
What's the dream?
The dream of the, going for 1 year
Oh
in
yeah,
this trip.
yeah. No, that was a dream for sure.
Yeah. So how was this process, the mental process, even to help people out there, to inspire people to, maybe someone is listening and watching us now and have a goal, but because man, theoretically, yeah, you guys went to complete, with 2 kids, on a bus. You have to do all those courses. You didn't understand much about the bus before and
Yep.
all of that. And so
Yeah.
how did you, first, what inspired you? Did you have any inspirational thing before, or was a movie or a book? What was the initial thing? And how was the process of making it happen?
Well, I think the dream is just a dream that I think a lot of Kiwis have, because Kiwis are great travelers, and we all know that we need to see more of our backyard, generally speaking. Previous to this trip, I did a beach documentary, and we did a lap of both islands, but we did it in like 54 days or something, and so we just charged around the whole place. And so I've known that it's out there and it's awesome, and that I want to poke around a bit more and spend some time. And I wanted my wife to have those same experiences of going to those cool places that I've been before. So the dream, I guess, it was really easy, but making it into reality is hard. And I think people, because we had all the time, people would say to us, "Oh man, I'd really love to do that one day," and I would always just ask, "Why? Oh, we'd really love to do that now. I'm like, why aren't you?" Is my question. Like, what's stopping you? Oh, we can't afford it, or whatever. But it's not really that, because there's a lot of people, and some people hate them. They call these people sliders, and they're like backpackers who go around in a little van or a little like people mover with a sliding door, and
I didn't know
they
that
call them
sliders.
sliders. And they're backpackers. They're a couple from Germany, or they're like a couple of dudes from France or whatever, and they go around and they do the dream on the smell of an oily rag. So they buy up a van for $5,000, and they sell it at the end for $5,000 to another group of people, and they go around. They don't spend any money. So money is not actually an excuse, but you're going to be poor for that time because you're not working. So I guess we just hang on to that, the luxuries that we've got and the lifestyle that we've got, and we're not willing to kind of compromise that. But also, it's like anything, you just have to do it. And once you start making it with any dream, you just have to make one concrete step. So the first concrete step for us was to buy a bus. So okay, we just spent a big chunk of the bank's money. We spent a big chunk of money on the bus. We bought a bus. Again, now we have to do it. So I think it's just taking that first step. You can dream about it, and you can jump on YouTube and you can watch videos of other people doing it, and you can add people on Instagram that are doing the same kind of thing, and you think, oh, I would love to do that one day. But the people who did it, they're not any more qualified than you, and then they weren't necessarily in a different situation. They just do it. And it's hard to, maybe it's difficult to get your house, if you own your house, to get it into a rentable state and then rent it out to strangers. Or maybe if you're renting, it's hard to let your house go and then not know if you're going to get a place when you come back. And the housing market in Wellington's, or the rental market's crazy. So there are things that hold people back and give them anxiety. But if you really want to do it, there is not anything really stopping you, unless you have a kidney disease and you need to be on the dialysis machine every week. There's no reason why you can't do it. And it's the same with anything. I mean, it's the same with people starting BJJ, right? They want to start it and they say, I'd love to do that one day, but they have these roadblocks that they've put up themselves. I haven't got time. Maybe I can't afford it. Well, that could be true in some cases, but as maybe you can figure that kind of stuff out by making compromises, maybe. or I'm not fit enough. They put up all these kind of, and everyone does it. I do it all the time. But if you actually stop listening to that part of your brain for a second and you go quiet, there's another part of your brain that's a little bit quieter and it's going, no, we can do it. But that negative part of your brain is quite loud, and it's quite repetitive, and it's super powerful and strong. And it really shouldn't be, because it is a part of you, and you should embrace that negative guy or girl or being in you. There's a part of you. We're friends, but he's a little bit of a whiny asshole. This negative voice. He shouldn't not take up more than 50% of my time. He should take up 20%. I'll listen to him because he might have some good ideas, but I want to just quiet him down a bit. And there's this other side, and this is how I think of it personally, anyways. That's got that's got ideas that's saying, no, we can do it. Let's give it a go. But that self-doubt, it might be something from when we were cavemen. Don't go outside the cave. You could get eaten, because you could get eaten. Let's not move to a different campsite because there might not be food there. Maybe it's primal in us to not be risk takers. But that other voice is there because those opportunities in the past, maybe those cavemen took an opportunity and then he became way more higher status, and then he passed his genes on more because he got laid more or whatever. Risk takers actually do get rewarded. So that voice is there. But we don't have to fight for our survival anymore. So this other voice, this negative, risk adverse, paranoid, scared little guy, he's so loud. But I'm trying to, this is my new idea, is that I just give him a little pat on the head and say, he's cute, aren't you? and
I love that. That's super cool. Yeah, please keep.
I'm trying to even personify them. This is my latest kind of hammed up idea. I'm trying to think of him as this little red guy, and he's only a little fella. And the positive voice is this big dude, and he's like a quiet, gentle giant. He doesn't need to prove himself. He's secure. He doesn't need to yell and scream, because he's your confident side of yourself. If you know any big dudes, right, who are 120 kilos, 6'4", I've got a few mates like that. They are confident because they don't have to prove themselves. If you're walking on the street, the big dude moves because who cares? He's not threatened. He'll let you go past. That big dude there, he's that big part of your psyche or your id or your inner monologue. He's confident, but he's not going to brag about it. So you got to quiet down the little dude and give him some space to listen. At least make it 50-50, because sometimes this, I don't want to be mean to him and say nasty words because he is still part of you. But this little fella, this little red guy, as I like to think of him, he doesn't deserve that much of your attention. But sometimes people, the little red guy tells them that you're not good enough. So sometimes they become better at things, because they struggle and they strive. And so he does actually help sometimes. So I think we need to still give him some love and embrace him, but just make sure that it's in perspective. And it's, when you hear those voices, I'm trying to, at the moment, put them into context. I'm hearing that voice, I'm going, I hear what you're saying, but it's the little guy talking, isn't it? The little red dude. So I know that I got to listen to you, but I don't have to do everything that you say. I'm starting to sound like I'm schizophrenic now. I've got two dudes living inside me.
That's so true, man. I love that. What a powerful message. Yeah.
Just an idea that's working for me, yeah. Probably didn't work for anybody else, and it's probably a bad idea to personify and split apart your personality, because it's actually not split apart, is it? It's all intermingled and it's all mashed up and confused inside your brain, isn't it?
But I agree with what you say. We need to question this other side, because it has those, this dialogue inside, and we need to question that, because if you just accept just one side, it's that side it's designed just to, as you said, a mechanism for surviving. And we need to be able to, my techniques like that, I'm not my thoughts. So my thoughts, when I start to think about those things, it's kind of we don't identify ourselves as our blood or as our kidneys, but it's part of a mechanism of surviving. Thoughts, I deal with the same. For me, it's just a mechanism of surviving, and I don't give much attention. One thing is to have ideas, so if you're trying to solve a problem or trying to do something, okay, I'm using my rational thinking. But just thoughts, as just a very sophisticated mechanism of scanning for problems, scanning for dangers, something like that. And I try to ignore. So I love what you said, because I do something very, very similar to that as well.
That's cool. How long did it take you to work it out? Because it's taken me 40 years.
Oh man, I've been practicing that now, but because of those experiences with monks and meditation, you kind of, you understand this, the line. Even now science, they shows the line of the brain responsible for just rumination, those thinking. It's this mirror line of the brain. But the area when it's responsible for solving problems and have ideas, it's a completely different area. So that idea. So who am I? I'm not this line of surviving. As I said, we don't normally identify ourselves as, I'm my urine or my heart or anything like that. But those are mechanisms of surviving. But because we value so much thinking, that now we value more, the people who are, thinking like what you're doing now. We talk about ideas, so we do value that, and I think the problems for us as a species, I think we are maybe a little bit confused with who am I, am I those ruminations of thoughts, or because that idea, how many thoughts I have per day, 40,000 to 6,000. But wait a minute, how many of those thoughts are ideas? It's completely different.
A lot of them are negative as well, aren't
Yeah,
they?
very negative, because becomes that the negative generates so much more emotions than the positive ones. The positive ones very calm. Doesn't I love what you said. It doesn't need to prove itself. The positive ones, it's the logical one. That doesn't need to, doesn't shake the body up with some chemical reactions. But the negative ones, my friend, those ones has lots of to prove. So I love what you said, this little guy, because it's pretty much like that. It's just give me attention, give me attention, give me attention, and they don't want to leave you alone. So I think if we question, as you said, I love that, because as soon as I start having a negative thought, I just start questioning. Okay, is this true? Why I'm thinking that? Come on, I'm not time to waste.
Yeah, because those ruminations, they can start to go so far as well. For me, I think if the example is like, this happens to me all the time, less so now because I'm starting to get on top of it, but I'll pull up to or we're going around a roundabout, right, and a car looks like it's going to go in front of me and cut me off, but it doesn't. It just stops, in time, and I drive past. But then I start like a rumination. I start thinking, well, what if they did pull out? Which they didn't. Let's be clear, they didn't pull out, so don't think about it. What if they did pull out and then we had a crash? And then what do? I get out and confront them. Do we start fighting? Now we're fighting.
Yeah.
And and then the police come and I've got to explain myself, and then I get locked up in jail. All of a sudden I'm 20 steps down the most negative possible channel. I could have thought about it the massive spectrum, but I've gone down the most negative one each time. Boom, 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 boom. Down to the most negative. Now I'm in jail.
Yeah.
But what happened is I just went around the roundabout,
Yeah.
and that person didn't cut me off. They just was slightly 1 second of a later braking than I thought they should have been, but that stuff I'm trying to stop, and I'm trying to think, it's the little guy talking. Let's just thank you for your input about they could have cut me off. I'm just going to stop you there because I don't want to go down every single negative fork all the way down into the And a friend of mine used to call it like like a shame spiral.
Yeah.
You're spiraling down, but
Yeah.
you're not even spiraling because you're forking off, and you're forking the most negative. Maybe there's 10 options for you to think about, but you choose the most negative one. Out of 1 to 10, you choose 1, which is the most negative, and then you've got 10 more options, but you choose 1, most negative.
Yeah.
So you've had literally like thousands or millions or billions of ways that you could have played out that situation in your head, but you've chosen literally the most negative, and you start to realize that it's affecting the chemicals in your body, right? Now you're anxious.
Yeah.
Now the next time someone comes to cut you off, you're angry,
Yeah.
like for the rest of the drive or whatever. But it's not real. You just invented this whole thing. You told yourself this entire story, and you took the most negative route all the way down. And that's the little guy. And I'm just trying now, semi-successfully, semi-unsuccessfully, to just see that, there's a little red fella talking. He's cute. We can pat him in the head and let's just keep going.
Yeah, but just to have this awareness, Sam, is already massive. I love what you said as well, because it's become a little bit a lack of imagination as well, because with so much power we have to imagine it different ways, why we just get obsessed with one way, just the negative one. So I always feel stupid when I just start doing that, because, man, am I capable to do way more than that, right? To think different possibilities. Why I'm stuck on that? So the lack of imagination as well. Do you know another thing that's shocking me in psychology? The research with PTSD. They said more than 50% of the people who suffer post-traumatic syndrome, blah blah blah.
Stress disorder.
Yeah. It's because it's not even because of the fact itself, but the possibilities they keep thinking about exactly what you said.
Thing, eh?
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's
Because they've had the worst thing happen to them, right?
yeah,
They've been blown up by an IED, or they've been shot if they're a soldier in Iraq. So that's literally is the 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 1,000 worst things that could have happened. I guess they're thinking now, so maybe it could happen again.
Yeah, and playing those scenarios. But Sam, now tell me, what was the most beautiful place in this whole journey?
That's easy. That's an easy question.
Oh,
That's
really?
much better. It's a place called Totranui, and it's like on the top of the South Island. It's in the Abel Tasman National Park. You have to go over the hill. What's that hill called? I can't remember at the moment. Into Golden Bay, and then you have to go down this crazy gravel road, which is definitely not advised for large buses. But if you're driving a large bus, you should definitely do it. Why not? But I came across some camper vans and caravans even, and like where they couldn't reverse up. I knew it was a harder situation for them to reverse up, so I'd have to reverse up, and an 11-meter bus on a gravel road round the corners to a little bay to let them pass. But eventually you get there, and it's golden sands. You're in the middle of the bush. There's bush down to the woodline in lots of places. It's the Abel Tasman is one of the most beautiful places on the planet, and the water is so clear. And the campsite is just back from the beach. There's heaps of bays, and I think I've heard that at Christmas time it's absolutely mental, because a lot of people do know about it. But if you go there outside of the crazy holiday period, it's just insane. It's like so beautiful and so peaceful, and you're just in the middle of the bush, and the sea is so beautiful. And we'd bought like a little kayak by that stage, an inflatable one, and we just went for these amazing kayak rides. I'd take my daughter, or my wife would take my daughter, and we just cruise around. You just look down, and it's so clear and beautiful. You almost like feel the pit of your stomach disappear, because you're like, I'm not meant to be hovering. And it was just a really beautiful spot, and there weren't too many people there at that time, and that is the most beautiful spot. The other spot is on the top of the North Island, is also incredibly beautiful. Yeah, I could not live in either of those places, but they're insanely beautiful.
Why not?
Well, I guess in like Northland, there's like the socio-economic situation is such that there's not very many good jobs and stuff like that. And some of the little cities and townships there are a little bit rough. I grew up in Hastings, or near Hastings, so like I'm comfortable in around rougher townships and stuff like that. It doesn't bother me, but like you do want better for your kids sometimes. So I don't know, maybe I'm being, but we went there with an open mind, and everyone that we met was beautiful and awesome. But I don't think it's like a place to, unless you're rich and you can afford to helicopter off for the weekend to some island. When a lot of people do that kind of stuff, rich people, and they can really enjoy and they can close themselves off to the less desirable aspects of it. Unless you can do that, which I wouldn't recommend anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's some places do feel a little bit grim. Um, and I mean, Tochanui is the top of the South Island. I could definitely live in Golden Bay, but you can't really live in Tochanui. But I could live in Golden Bay. That would be the one area I would really like to live in. And I think that's the area that's like growing at one of the fastest rates in New Zealand at the moment. I read the other day. Some crazy amount of people moving there a year. So the house prices and the land prices are starting to get a little bit out of whack, like they are everywhere else in New Zealand. And people have figured it out. Oh, it's the Takaka Hill. That's what it's called. You see, you have to go over the Takaka.
Say again, please.
It's the Takaka Hill. It's this big hill. You have to go from. You travel from Nelson. You have to go this big hill to get to Golden Bay, and that is like a little bit of a mission. It certainly is in a bus. Definitely is in a bus, but it's fun because as long as you pitch it that way to yourself. But that means it's like a little bit more of a mission to go to Nelson to get your bigger shop or whatever. They have Takaka is a really cool little township in Golden Bay that they have like a supermarket. I think it's a Fresh Choice or something like that. And they have a gin distillery and they have nice cafes and apparently there's a couple of good restaurants. It's a really neat little, funky little place. I'd quite happily live there. But for now, my wife's job is tied to Wellington and she really loves and enjoys her job, so we're not planning on, selling the house and moving to Takaka anytime soon. Yeah. Plus, then I wouldn't be able to train.
Yeah, come on.
That's the big problem.
So, Sam, what was the most memorable thing from this whole experience?
Oh, the most memorable thing, I guess, like. Some of the moments were actually kayaking. And for me, when we were growing up, we really wanted to we lived close to a river and we'd go to the river and swim and all that kind of stuff. But we weren't that well off. I lived with my mum and she wasn't that well off. So we always wanted to buy like an inflatable boat or something like that. And I remember we even looked them up at the warehouse and they weren't that expensive. They're like $150 or something, but we didn't have the money to buy one. So I always wanted one. So on this trip, halfway through, I was like, we got to buy like an inflatable kayak that two of us can go in. And it's been like a dream for me for a long time. And I was worried that a lot of these like material dreams that you have often, once you actually get the thing, you're like, but this didn't turn out to be the case with the kayak. And I had some really magic moments. Sometimes I go out with my daughter, sometimes I go out by myself. Just like floating there and you're in the middle of nowhere in the Marlborough Sound somewhere. It's beautiful. There's nobody around. You just stop paddling. It's quiet. And you're floating there and it's just so beautiful. And I kayaked, at one stage I kayaked across the other side of the Sound and there was a little sandy beach, no one there, and pulled up and ate my apple on the other side. And I think that was like a real moment that I needed. Like I get like a lot of joy and love from spending time around my family and friends, but sometimes you need just that space to yourself, eh? And that was a real memorable moment because I was just like, like the only thing I wish I'd brought a beer with me, and then I really would have been a magical moment, just an ice cold beer and sitting there just like thinking about stuff. But that was a really magic moment, and a few other times kind of just floating out there was really neat. Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. So, yeah, inspirational. Super cool. Super cool.
Yeah.
So, Sam, are you ready for now the embrace the chaos. It's this part of the podcast. I'm not sure
Oh
if you're aware.
no, I haven't.
No.
I
Okay,
haven't
so I'm gonna
seen
even
Embrace It.
play. We have a music as well.
Oh,
Yeah, that's the music. Have a look. Can you hear?
yeah.
Yeah. Embrace the chaos. So I'm gonna make some tough questions now for you,
Oh,
Sam.
okay. I wasn't.
So let's start with the. I didn't warn you about
Oh,
that this
good.
part. You know.
Have
So
it.
Sam, let's start. Me and one of the things impressed me about you the most. It's the. I mean, you're very confident, and you're super confident with your choices, and you're the definition of a good man.
Oh,
You
thank you.
decided to become a home dad as well, right? So
Yeah.
how was this conversation with your wife when you said, no, I'm gonna take this role.
Well, we always talked about it, and like that I would like to do like a year or a couple of years, like looking after the kids, and I- I've never, I guess, because I grew up mostly with my mum, and she was like this awesome mother figure. I've always had kind of I hesitate to call it a maternal instinct, but
Mm.
because it's not, it's a paternal instinct because, I'm a dad, but I've always wanted to be involved in my kids because I had that role model from, my mum.
Mm-hmm.
So I never kind of, I guess it's nice that you said that I'm very confident because I don't feel that way. I might come across that way sometimes, but inwardly I don't feel that way. But I do feel certainly confident enough to be a stay-at-home dad and not care at all in any way what some sections of society might think about that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think about that at all because this is something, I am confident in my choices, absolutely. And it's challenging sometimes, but I really love it, and I wouldn't swap it for anything. But again, I'm super fortunate in that my wife is able to, go to work in a job that she enjoys, and she brings in enough money that we can pay the mortgage and, we live very comfortably. We're very happy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm fortunate, I'm privileged. So it's not, I know some people, they don't have the option to have a parent at home all the time. You have to have both parents working. I mean, my mum, when growing up, we're a single parent household. She was working a lot, and she would have two or three jobs, and I was a latchkey kid effectively. We'd hide the key somewhere and would come home from school and open the house up. Mum wouldn't be home,
Mm-hmm.
and she didn't have that option, but we do have that option, and we choose to take that option and make really what our first world problem sacrifices. So sure, we might not be able to buy a batch, or we might not be able to have as many overseas trips, or we might not be able to buy like a sailboat that we really like. But those are first world problems. That's not a big deal. So we're just lucky that we're able to make an easy decision that works for us personally. It might not work for other people. But I've always been confident in that decision. Sometimes it's a bit weird being the stay-at-home dad. You drop off at kindy and whatever, and it's mostly mums. There are a few dads there, which is cool, but the mums kind of look at you a little bit weird. And if you're walking around the supermarket with your kids, the old ladies, especially the older generation, they look at you a bit strange. And there's this couple that we've bumped into a couple times at the cafe, because we go to a cafe once a week at the garden centre, actually where Mike works.
Yeah, yeah.
And this time I bumped into them a couple of days ago, maybe yesterday, and the lady said, "Are you the?" She's seen me twice out with the kids. Are you the Are you the house husband? She said, and I'm like, yeah. And her mind was blown because she's like in her 90s and super lovely lady, but it's just not in her whole sphere of thinking. And like I saw her like go over to the table when she told her husband, "He's the house husband." And then we had a lovely conversation, and she's like super supportive of it, but she was really lovely, but it just melted her mind, like,
Yeah.
what?
Mm-hmm.
It's just not her generation. I mean, even in the Netherlands, she's Dutch. I've got Dutch heritage myself. In the Netherlands, they're super supportive of that now, incredibly supportive. They have like, I think once a month they have Father's Day, which is the day that the dads have off work and they go and spend with the kids, and it's like a Friday or something like that, and it's whatever the Dutch word is for Father's Day. But they have, so they're super supportive, the Dutch people, but it's just more of a generational thing. So sometimes the older generation are weird about it, but
That's awesome, man. That's super cool. Sam, do you cry?
oh yeah. I
Yeah?
can be emotional for sure.
Yeah.
That is a hard question, just straight to the jugular.
When was the last time you cried?
Oh man, I can't think. Like I have, like not long ago, because quitting my job, and I have had like a few times a little bit of an existential crisis. Like what am I doing with my life? Like um, what am I contributing? And then I kind of eventually, and sometimes I get low, and everyone does. And I've cried a few times then when with my wife talking about it, and she's been comforting me, and I've kind of like had to figure that out, like because I'm 40 and I've quit my job and the only career that I've known, and now I'm the stay-at-home dad, and like it's sometimes a large part of your identity is tied to your vocation, which I think is totally wrong. But I had to kind of separate myself from that part of it and realize that the thing that I'm doing now, being the stay-at-home dad, is the best place that I can be at the moment, and it is making a real contribution, not only to my kids, but if we raise good kids, to society. We need, kids reading ages are like majorly dropping. There's a lot of kids are starting school these days, and they say, I read they've got like vocabs of like 2-year-olds, and this is like 5-year-old kids. So like I think that there is we've gone too far the other way. That is like a response. We have a responsibility as parents to spend time with our kids, and maybe we've gone too far in the other direction, and it's not necessarily necessary to be teaching a 3-year-old how to write, and we haven't put any of that kind of pressure on her. But how did this question start? Have I cried? Yeah, am I trying to avoid the question? Yeah, no, I cry. Sometimes you despair, like, and I think it's like an identity thing, and it's because I've tied my identity to I am Sam, the guy who works on films, but I can still be that. But I want to be creative now. I'm producing things, and haven't got the time at the moment. So, I'm kind of got to figure things out. And so that has, caused me to have a couple of existential crises, I like to call them, because trying to figure out who I am. Yeah, I need to buy like I'm a bit early to have my midlife crisis and buy like a sports car or something like that.
That's awesome. So Sam, if you could go back to your vision, 20 years old, and give one advice. So you have 6 minutes, the minutes of a row, right? 6 minutes to give a talk of yourself. Which advice would you give to yourself?
Well, firstly, anyone who's in my position and does BJJ, my position as in started in their 30s, would tell themselves to start training. And I actually don't mean that lightly. I mean, I think that would have absolutely changed the course of my life. But I don't know, the butterfly effect, I wouldn't have met my wife, and we can't think about that. But I would ask myself to go training, and I would just try and instill in myself some confidence to confront some of the, or turn towards and face that little red guy and see him for who he is, I guess, look into the dark corners, but definitely start training. If I started training at 20, would I be a black belt by now with a few stripes?
Yes.
Wouldn't that be cool? When did you start training?
I started was 14. Yeah.
Oh God.
13,
Yeah.
14, yeah.
Oh God. So you've just turned 40. You've been training 26 years.
26,
amazing. Yeah. I would, and I enjoyed my 20s, and I would tell myself to still do that and enjoy my 20s. And I would tell my kids to do that as well. It's, try different things, be entrepreneurial. You don't necessarily have to go to university. The world is your oyster. Like, pick something and really go after it. You can go out and get drunk with your mates and, go on camping trips and spend a whole winter playing your favorite video game. You can do all that kind of stuff, but like have something on the boil that you're working towards. That's part of your passion. And I did manage to do that in my 20s. I made music videos and I did keep all that kind of all those creative juices flowing. But I definitely don't live with any regrets. So I don't believe in that. But I would tell myself to start training. But yeah, all the things we've been talking about today, really, value your time, value your human connections. Don't take your mates for granted. Because your mates are eventually, they're going to get married themselves and have kids, and they're going to have less time. And if you both haven't got time, you got to make time for your mates. It's making me feel guilty about all those people that I'm meant to catch up with a beer and, haven't done it. Yeah.
That's awesome. So Sam, which question should I make you and I miss it?
What question?
Yeah.
I don't know. I really just came into this with an open mind and to see what you threw at me. But I don't know. I'm really glad that we got to talk about, because I've been thinking about the two little guys. The little red dude. I don't know what color or what shape the big guy makes, but I know he's big and quietly spoken and confident. But I'm really glad that we got to talk about that. I mean, like, I don't have any regrets about this interview.
Okay.
I don't have anything like, oh damn, I should have talked about that and I would have seemed really clever. No, not at all. Like, no. That's your job anyway.
Yeah, but I'm just make sure if did I miss any important thing you'd like to talk about it and I miss it. I didn't ask you.
No, I think I've talked about all my favorite rants at the present time. Yeah.
That's awesome. So Sam, now what's life? What's the meaning of life?
Oh my God. Do you ask everyone that question?
Yes, of course.
What the hell do they say?
Yeah.
I don't
start to watch more the Rise of the Super Being.
Yeah, I know. I've only watched a couple. I need to watch.
I asked this question. Yes,
absolutely.
Embrace the chaos. That's the section of the.
And is there music playing? Or
yeah, man. Yeah, I have I figured out I have a little music here. No?
Oh, okay. So random. The meaning of life. I don't know. Firstly, I would say I don't know. But what's meaningful in life? Well, it's just it's other people and it's yourself. Those are the things that are meaningful. But that's kind of trying to dodge your question a little bit, I guess. Because what's the meaning of life? I don't think there is a meaning. I think I'm trying to. I used to be fatalistic and say, like, if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. But I don't believe in that anymore. So I'm more kind of, if you want something to happen, you have to make it happen. And why are we here? Well, because evolution, I don't think we're being put on this earth for a reason or anything like that. I think life is what you make of it, and you've got to make your own decisions. And choose which way you go. I don't, and there's no right and wrong answer. So I don't think that there is a meaning of life, because I don't think there is any meaning. I mean, the universe is expanding. That's a truism. There's a few truisms like that, I guess. But I don't believe that there's a meaning. I'm sure that like someone could take all the answers from this interview and figure out what kind of philosophy perspective I take, but I have no idea. Maybe they can recommend who I should be reading. Yeah.
That's awesome. So Sam, thank you so much, and thanks so much for your time. That was very inspirational. I knew that. This is why I was. Since you came back from this trip, we've been talking about Sam. Let's go to the podcast, man. We need to share your story, and that was super cool. I love every single minute. I'm gonna recommend that for all our guys, to listen to and to know a little bit more about your story. I mean, now I'm inspired to buy a bus and and go and travel around New Zealand. No,
We've got one on Trade Me for sale if you
yeah.
want.
Yeah, man, no, super cool, super cool. Thank you so much, and thank you for your vulnerability as well. Remember, man, on this podcast, man, we don't know the answers of anything. We just make the questions and put out there, right? That's the main goal. So yeah, so don't, especially those questions I'm asking on the hint.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, no, you did super well. Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for this opportunity because, like, I mean, a lot of these things that you think about, they might come out and sound succinct and clever, but I didn't really said most of this stuff out loud, and you don't really get to have conversations like this. I mean, I do have with my wife, and she's really awesome about this kind of more meaningful chat, but I don't really get to have this opportunity that often. So it's really appreciate this. Even if they take the cameras away, and it was really great to sit down and chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, friend. Let's keep it changing the world for a better place. Thank you so much.
Oh.
No, we shake hands here. Yeah.
Shake hands on the podcast.